to the field. Terror of the tiger, I'ma always keep it real. Every team gon' get devoured, it's the power. LSU with Carter, it's the power. LSU with Carter.
Let's freaking go. As you can see, they are ruining the sport that we have all come to love. College football will never be the same because it's inevitable that the powers that be don't actually like you. Yes, you. I don't care, whoever you are watching this right now. What makes college football great is the scarcity that comes with playing this sport. The margin of error to actually win the championship has never, ever, ever been easier. And that's because teams just want to keep adding more and more playoff teams, and it makes more and more people money. And they're talking about play-in games in the SEC championship, which I'm actually somewhat in favor of, depending on how they do it. But whatever the case may be, what made college football great is the regular season. And guess what? They're going to take away what makes it special. That LSU win over Ole Miss, where it came down to the wire, the great Kyron Lacey catch to win the whole shebang, the Mason Taylor fourth down conversion, the Aaron Anderson fourth down conversion, Garrett Nussmeier lighting it up in that fourth quarter. All of that would mean nothing if you go to a 16-team playoff, because Ole Miss still would have gotten in. LSU, one of the best transfers they brought in, Barian freaking Brown, had the biggest catch arguably in the SEC last season to upset the great Ole Miss Rebel team last year when Barian Brown, of course, was with Kentucky. He had a big fourth down conversion in his own right. Y'all, they are ruining the sport that we love and we care about. And as much as I want to talk about LSU baseball, as much as I want to talk about LSU softball, we are a college football channel first. And even though everything, I'm looking at you right now, everything that I just said, every last little thing, as much as I hate to say it, this is a good thing for LSU. An expanded playoff helps your team. Let me repeat. Your team, my team, our team, an expanded playoff is good for LSU. As much as I hate it, I have had this position for a while now, even when it went to 4 teams. Then it went to 12. LSU historically is a national championship caliber program. That is indeed true. But more often than not, where is LSU normally ranked at the end of the season? In the teens. Anywhere from 10 to 19. Hardly ever in the 20s. Sometimes in the top 10. We win natties, of course, at a higher rate than basically anyone else not named Alabama. But the expanded playoff helps out. So you see the thumbnail image. Is this a playoff or bust season for Brian Kelly? The answer to that is no, because a lot of us know about the contract situation. All right. They know that Brian Kelly is in for the long haul here and that we're recruiting a good 2026 class. And our NIL has a good format now. We are more organized. We were not organized last year. I wasn't the only one that reported that. National guys like Josh Pate reported that as well. We were not organized. This year we were organized. This year we brought in an elite transfer portal class. This year we do return a top 5 QB with top 5 Heisman odds. So is this a playoff or bust year? Well, the thumbnail says year 3. Our guest from not too long ago, Daily Joy, said, hey, Brian Kelly told me to judge him by year 3. We're 3 years into it, no playoff appearances. I think a lot of us would have expected us to be in a playoff by at least one season. But what Brian Kelly could also tell you is that there were a lot of changes in college football. Our NIL is now aligned. And technically, you could characterize a coach's first full 3 seasons as this next year being Brian Kelly's 3rd season, because it will be his 3rd full recruiting class. So if we were to judge the LSU program and the Hall of Fame career of Brian Kelly, it would be an epic failure that LSU did not make the playoff in the first 4 seasons of Brian Kelly's tenure. With really good to transcendent level quarterback play in each of every one of those 4 seasons. And a ton of other first-round picks mixed in there. So, yes, if we were to just look at this objectively, yeah, of course. But with the playoff being 12 teams and eventually it being 16, that's really good news for Brian Kelly. Now, why is that really good news? Well, you guys know what we do in season opening games. We do not win them. We just don't. I think a lot of us remember from way back when Tyrann Mathieu stripping the punt returner versus Oregon. I was at that game. A lot of you remember that moment in time. Oregon made a mistake scheduling us. We were bigger, we were faster, we were stronger, and we beat the hell out of them. Physically, mentally, emotionally. What happened to that Oregon Duck team? They ended up being great. Not good, but great. They won a BCS Bowl. They were really, really, really good. If the playoff format back then was a 12-team format, Oregon not only would have gotten in, they would have gotten in comfortably. Hell, they probably would have hosted a game, a first-round game. So with the playoff expanding, it helps LSU in such a major way because we can't win these season openers. And you can argue that this upcoming season opener might be the toughest because it is a true road game. Now, I don't think this team is as good as the Florida State teams that we played, but Clemson's going to be really good. Okay? So, look, this is what I would ask you. All right? Brian Kelly will survive this next season regardless of what happens. Unless it is a true disaster season. If we go 6-6, then they'll find a way to get him out. It's not going to happen, though. But I do think you have got to make the playoff in one of these next 2 seasons. All right? I mean, that is not asking too much. I said, starting with Brian Kelly's tenure, I want to see at least one playoff appearance in the first 3 to 4 seasons. We're at year 4 with no playoff appearances. I do think you need to make at least one in the next 2 seasons. All right? We do. Now, do I think we will make the playoff? Well, I will tell you this. I am a big believer in something called consensus. A lot of you know what consensus is, right? It's not just my opinion, but what a lot of people feel. And what a lot of people feel right now is that LSU is a playoff team. Now, I haven't seen a single national media member have LSU as a top 5 playoff team. The consensus has been LSU has been a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 playoff team. I think I saw Andy Staples have it. I saw Adam Brenneman have it. I saw 247 have it, I believe. Basically, every single playoff prediction has LSU in it right now. It is shocking. And what I think is most of my viewers right now are split on that. You're split on if you think this team is going to make the college football playoff next year. So whatever you feel, I do feel it's important to note that there have been a lot of things that have gone in Brian Kelly's favor in terms of the margin of error of success with this team. You've had about as good of a 4-year run you could possibly have at the quarterback position. All right. Like it can't you can't really have what you have had at the quarterback position better than what LSU has had. Okay. With Jaden going right into Garrett. Obviously, neither one of them were perfect. Outside of Jaden in 2023, he was perfect. But still, there's coaches who never have a quarterback as good as Garrett Nussmeier. There's teams that never have that. Garrett's not even the best quarterback that BK has had up to this point. So a lot of things have gone in your favor. One thing that's gone in our favor, we don't have to play Georgia. We don't have to play Texas. We don't have to play a Tennessee team that went into Tiger Stadium and beat us worse than any team has beaten us up to this point in the Brian Kelly tenure. All right. So we've had good things go in our favor. All right. I really, really hope this team makes the playoff. I really, really, really do. And right now, I am leaning towards this team making the playoff. Even though the single most important position group in college football is your offensive line, there's still so many questions there. That is really, at this point, the only position group where you have major, major, major questions. You have questions at every single position group. The only one right now that I have major questions, as in it could get to a disastrous level, is the offensive line. This team is really, really, really good in terms of on paper talent. All right. I really do feel that way. It's grown on me. And another thing is, while I do think that the floor of SEC caliber teams has gone up in terms of Arkansas is a better program now, Vanderbilt's a better program now because of NIL and the portal and all of that, I do think the top half isn't as good and will never be as good as it once was, unless you're like Texas and you truly do spend $35 to $40 million on a single roster. So, for me, I think the best team in the SEC, we do not have to play them next year, which is Texas. I do think Georgia is kind of in that realm. But we'll see. Okay. We're going to get to some comments. I have a crazy LSU baseball stat coming up here in just a moment. I've always told you, I'm not the baseball guy. All right. But I do watch. I just don't watch intently. I enjoy my off-season time. But I've covered Arkansas baseball for a long time. I've interviewed Dave Van Horn before. And there is one crazy stat that will completely change your opinion about what happened today. Okay. Is Arkansas a better program than LSU in baseball? No. Not in football. No, not in anything really outside of, I don't know. Okay. But there is a stat that will change your opinion about today. Okay. Let's go to Cliff. He says it starts with Blake Baker. Yeah, look. I did a Blake Baker deep dive on Thursday, and it was in live stream format. I do not think people understand how not good we were defensively last year. It was brutal. Part of it, though, is that it just wasn't Matt House, right? It just wasn't. But in terms of SEC level play, we're talking about just SEC versus SEC competition. That was the worst rushing defense we have had at LSU. The worst in terms of yards per carry and RYBC. And if you want to learn more about that, go look at the stream on Thursday. Okay. No, I do not think Arkansas is a better baseball program than LSU. But I do have a stat that is that'll make what LSU did this weekend even more impressive. Okay. Let's go to Will. It says, it's really embarrassing to not make the playoffs with the roster we've gotten. Yeah, I mean, look, the truth is last year's roster just wasn't that great. It just wasn't. Like, I could say that with a straight face. You can ask Cliff and people that do listen pretty regularly, in particular, why I have been so defensive of Blake Baker. And it's not me saying that I thought Blake was a good hire. I'm not defending it because I felt that way about Blake Baker, and I was a big proponent of hiring him. It's just I really felt that way about the LSU defensive talent going into this last season. It was not good. It just wasn't good. Now, that doesn't mean there wasn't great players. Braden Swinson was phenomenal. One of the best pass rushing seasons of the modern era at LSU. We had the emergence of Whit Weeks. We had some true freshmen courageously step up and play good snaps for us. But now that excuse is out the door. There are no glaring weaknesses on this LSU defense. Glaring being the word. Are there weaknesses and question marks? Yes. There's a lot of interesting fits on how all of this is going to work. So we'll see how it all plays out. Okay. Now, we do put the baseball hat on, and I really do mean it. I was shocked when I saw this earlier today.
Let's go!
On a journey together with Zion Imaging, I want you to see this experience up close. And me as a wedding and event DJ, I watched how everybody had so much fun with Zion Imaging. And a big reason for their success is the team. Yes, Jaron Thomas and his family started this off as a passion project, and they have one simple goal in mind: taking your event to the next level. Whether it's a wedding, reunion, quinceañera, school, or corporate event, Zion Imaging is all about family-friendly fun. And I gotta show you on this tour the high-level technology that quickly sends your video session to your phone, whether it's iPhone or Android. Yes, it's the Zion Imaging 360 spin booth experience, serving North Texas, North Louisiana, South Arkansas, Orlando, and more. Give us a call, 318-469-4265. Check us out on Facebook or book us at Zion Imaging, XYANimaging.com. Are you a die-hard LSU fan, and would you like to understand the complex game of football better? Well, sign up today for our PHL Patreon. This is his second touchdown. Counter G, why you're pulling the guard. We dive deep on recruiting and the transfer portal at a level that you have never seen before. Film breakdowns from so many different angles, and my personal favorites, oh yeah, the analytics, baby. I like to get nerdy. We take a look at cutting-edge statistics that help all of us understand LSU football even better. And guess what? Every new sign-up gets a Joe Burrow card in the mail for free. But we got to save the best for last. Our private Discord community of LSU fans from around the globe. Sign up today. Patreon.com/LSU football and put your name on our wall of patrons. Special thanks to everybody who's on here. Let's freaking go. All righty. So Jay freaking Johnson, how good is he? So after Saturday night's game, this stat from Todd Politz, LSU baseball has played 250 games under Jay Johnson. His record, an astonishing 177-73. Now, I understand there's a bunch of soft midweek games mixed in there, but in baseball, where the talent disparity really doesn't matter as much, to be 104 games over 500 is ridiculous. And it only ties the great Skip Bertman for the best record at LSU after 250 games ever. And my thoughts are with Skip Bertman. First Mother's Day without his wife. And happy Mother's Day to all the mothers that are out there. Love me some Skip Bertman. I think every one of you do. And that was after a run rule and a 1 a.m. game that ended on Friday night. Okay. My favorite college baseball memory was being in Omaha for the 09 Paul Mainieri championship. Okay. You guys have seen what happened to Paul Mainieri. He's the worst coach in the SEC right now. You could have said Missouri, but Missouri had the most impressive series of the weekend, sweeping Texas A&M and knocking them out of the postseason, essentially. So Paul Mainieri right now is the worst coach in the SEC. Okay. I'm not overly qualified to say that, but it's been a disaster, especially compared to expectations. It is so easy to fall off in baseball. So easy. And we have seen elite coaches, after winning one natty, fall off. Jay Johnson's not falling off. I can argue he has gotten even better. And I know he got thrown out today. But he is, to me, one of the most talented coaches to ever step foot on LSU's campus in any sport. And there have been some great ones. We are very lucky to have this man. It is harder than ever to win in college baseball. Even harder than when Skip did. Now, what Skip did is more impressive. It'll never be matched again. But it is ridiculous that Jay Johnson has done what he's done. It's hard as hell. And you have got to work. I can also make a very strong case that Jay Johnson is the hardest working coach on campus. And I think every single LSU coach works hard. I'm not with them every single day, but I've been told relentlessly about this man's work ethic. So I'm really freaking excited about the future of our baseball program. And even though today was sour, there was bad calls, the umpires sucked. It would have been nice to have that sweep. But at this juncture, Jay Johnson's about to get us another top 8 national seed, and that is ridiculous. Okay? That's all we can ask for. That's all we can ask for. Okay? So we'll get to BT Super Chat. We'll get back into Clemson. BT's one of my really good friends. We had a great phone call over the weekend. So why did Jay Johnson get thrown out? It was some BS. He said something very minimal, and he said something in the post game about not getting a warning or whatever. But he said, I'm not a lip reader or whatever. A lot of people have interpreted what he said. It was very small. I do want to do the most popular thing in the world, which is crap all over the referees and umpires and all of it. Y'all, umpires have a power trip issue right now in college baseball. And we've seen it. We saw it with the Bear Jones walk-off. There was an instance with Clemson over the weekend where there was a crazy throwout. I won't get into everything that happened with that, but that's in a different conference. Umpires are having a big power trip issue. All right. And what if I told you that Jay Johnson stat that we just shared is not the stat that I was referencing earlier and before the break? Okay. So I admire Arkansas baseball coach Dave Van Horn. All right, I used to cover Arkansas baseball. I covered the game that was the latest game that's ever lasted in the SEC. I had to do my radio show from Baum Walker, which is the Arkansas baseball stadium, essentially at 6 a.m. after a baseball game ended at 3 in the morning. And Dave Van Horn was the coach. So I didn't know Dave well, but I was around. And the guy had his infielder drop a foul ball that cost him a national championship. But essentially, Jay Johnson said before the series even began that he feels Arkansas, recruits just ridiculously good athletes, and Dave Van Horn's a great coach. This stat blew my freaking mind, okay? Arkansas never gets swept under Dave Van Horn. Never. So he's been the coach there over 2 decades. Since 2017, Arkansas baseball has been swept twice. Twice. LSU is the second lowest with 8. And then it's Georgia 10, Tennessee 10, Vanderbilt 10. Ole Miss, who won a natty 13 times. Florida's won multiple natties 14 times. Mississippi State won a natty 15 times. South Carolina, 2 natties 15 times. And then this weekend, this was only the 5th time that Arkansas's lost the first 2 games of any SEC series since 2017. Now, this is via Stu Hogg. He could just be making this up, but he seems pretty legitimate. I looked at some of his stuff earlier. Arkansas's been the most consistent program, arguably, of the past decade. They just haven't won a natty. That's why I call Dave Van Horn the Jerry Sloan of baseball. Definitely one of the all-time best coaches, just didn't win a natty. Or a championship, if you will. So I say all that because what we did this weekend is worthy of praise. I know we wanted to sweep, but just winning game 1 and game 2 is ridiculous. Okay? That I did not think he was that good as a regular season coach, but he chokes in the postseason. So I was going to say he's James Harden. He's been a little bit better in the postseason than James Harden. But point being, this was so big for us over the weekend. So big. Okay? I know Arkansas, they don't have Andrew Benintendi and Hagen Smith and some of those guys that they have had some legends. But we won game 1 and game 2. I won a game 3. The fact that we were even in that position, winning on the walk-off sacrifice fly, is a great weekend for LSU baseball. All right. Let's go to Bullfrog. If Jay Johnson gets the NIL money that Brian Kelly got for football, he'd be completely unstoppable. I will say LSU does invest in NIL for baseball. All right. And something else I like about Jay Johnson is he gets, from what I've been told, very, very, very aggressive regarding that. Right? He is really good at convincing the powers that be to go out there and spin and get the players that we need to get. Okay. If LSU beats Clemson handily, says Brian, undefeated national championship, the transfer portal has made them possibly the best roster in the NCAA right now. I think so. I think I would definitely say, in terms of on paper, this is a top 10 roster. All right. It's just, it's tough because you do worry about 2 big things. The first is the actual coaching itself. All right. I do think LSU's biggest question mark outside of the offensive line issue that we talked about, that being, one of these big things, is the play caller. Joe Sloan has got to be better. It's just that simple. He has got to be better. It's hard to be better because There's so many good play callers in this conference with a ton of experience. A ton. It's really hard to be successful in this conference as an offensive play caller because you're not only going up against the opposing team's defensive play callers who are really good in this conference, you have to keep up with the opposing team's offensive play callers. It's a big problem. It is. Okay. Now, next thing. It's getting that time for LSU softball postseason. Okay. Now, why do I bring this up? It's a little bit earlier than normal for us to get into LSU softball. Well, a lot of you, not me, believes this is a do or die, or should I say, College World Series or bust year for Bet Torina. There are quite a few of you that do not believe in her being a big-time postseason coach. And guess what? There's some justification for that. Last year, you fell short, ran into a buzzsaw, Stanford, their best pitcher. You guys know that story. But then you've had some other years where you lose to UL in a regional. This year, you're getting to host a regional. There were quite a few people that wanted LSU to get a super regional because of their strong RPI. It's hard to argue for a super, though. It is. Because I do think Oklahoma, Texas, and Texas A&M have kind of separated themselves. And then you have Arkansas with Bree Ellis. And there's other good teams in the SEC. A super was tough. It's a tough argument to make, even though you can make an RPI schedule argument. Truth be told, though, I am shocked because I am not the LSU softball expert either. I have been Bet Torina's loudest defender. I am a little bit surprised, though, by the people I defer to when it comes to softball expertise. So Skipper, we have our own softball expert, Skipper, who does sit and watch every single pitch of every single game. He has the heebie-jeebies about the playoffs every year with Bet Torina. We also have Sherry Berry, who almost watches every pitch of every game. We have Danny Girl, who does watch every pitch of every game. They say the same thing. They say the exact same thing. And they've even texted me and said, look, I'm worried about this team in this postseason. May 16th through 18th, the regional at Tiger Park. Nebraska, Yukon, and Southeastern. We'll see what happens. Okay. I'm telling you, Cliff, I will defend Bet Torina until the end of time. We are very lucky to have her as our softball coach. I believe it. I have a tendency to defend people with the lack of postseason success. I just defended Dave Van Horn. I will defend Bet Torina. But once again, there's so many LSU sports, hard to be an expert in all of them. The people that do sit and watch every single game and have so for years have pushed back against it. So, that's okay. That's okay. And they're still fans of Bet Torina. Okay? But it's constructive criticism. It's valid criticism. All right. Now, next thing I'll bring up. And I want everyone to listen to me very closely here. Kind of a general sports thing, and then we'll get back in to a recruiting flip from the state of Louisiana that could backfire. All right. We are in the golden age of sports right now. What you are witnessing right now is a golden age of sports. I'm loving the NBA playoffs. I have never been more excited about a WNBA season, ever. Caitlin, Angel, obviously my favorite player is Anissa Morrow. She'll be in her rookie season with the Connecticut Sun. I as much as I love Sylvia Fowles and all the other LSU WNBA legends, I just didn't care as much back then. I do now. Okay, I do now. Paige Becker's the whole thing. I love it. Freaking love it. Okay. And then of course you have the NFL. I get to watch Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels as professional elite quarterbacks for the next decade. Excited about that. We are living life right now if you're a sports fan. And I just want you to love it. Okay. And the reason why is that we get caught up in nostalgia. You know, I grew up, I grew up in a Jordan family. It's what I do. Okay. It's just my dad, who I love more than anybody on the planet, alongside my mother and my wife. I grew up in a Jordan household. But even he is the most diehard Jordan guy, watches every NBA playoff game. And even he told me this weekend, hey, this is some of the best basketball he's ever watched in his life. It's really been that good. And then we're in this ridiculous world right now in LSU athletics where we have elite baseball, really good softball, elite women's basketball, really good football with Heisman Trophy winners. We're just in a good state right now, and I'm very happy to get to witness it. Okay. So Cliff watches every game, and he is a ardent defender, a veteran, and he coached an elite softball player who could have played high level collegiately. Okay. I want to talk about one recruiting story that happened over the weekend that can be a bit of a dangerous tale. All right. So Ja'Kai Anderson at a McDonough 35. McDonough has produced some freaking beast athletes. All right. One of the best was a friend of mine, Delvin Skipbro, had a serious injury at LSU, but still ended up playing for the Saints very successfully, might I add. Okay. Oh, look, it's my mother calling me on Mother's Day. Hey, Mom, you're on the live stream.
Hey, we're gonna put a surprise for you in your carport.
Oh,
Yeah,
you oh, do y'all want to come in? Yeah, y'all want to come on? Y'all are on the live stream right now.
Oh, no. Hi. No, I'm just going to drop this off at your front door. That's all.
All right, what was the best era of the NBA, Dad?
The best era of the NBA.
Oh, my goodness. The 1980s for sure. No question.
All right.
Since you have to ask.
Yeah, I know.
All right, we're gonna put.
All right, happy Mother's Day, Mom.
I'm gonna put this on your back step. Bye-bye.
All right, yeah, you can hear the dog. Happy Mother's Day. Love it. We get back into the Ja'Kai Anderson story. McDonough 35. And, man, Delvin Bro played at McDonough 35 High School, if I remember correctly. I really liked what I saw from Ja'Kai Anderson. This is a 4-star wide receiver, Louisiana wide receiver. Malik Neighbors had a really good interview with Carmelo Anthony, which is a crazy sentence to say, but it is true. And Malik Neighbors said what makes him really excited about being a Louisiana wide receiver or an LSU wide receiver is that all the production at the LSU wide receiver position has come from wide receivers from Louisiana. All right. And it took a weird season this past year from number 4, CJ Daniels, to break the long streak of wide receivers not catching 40 passes from outside the state of Louisiana. The last was Terrence Tolliver. So Ja'Kai Anderson decommits. LSU still has a really good wide receiver class. He flips to SMU. It's ironic he flipped to SMU because last week I talked about how SMU is a top 10 job in the country. So, you do lose this commitment. You do. But LSU still has an elite wide receiver class. Okay? Take a look at it here. Tristan Keys, top 10 national wide receiver. Jabari Mack, top 100 wide receiver. So there you go. So it's not a panic loss, especially in this day and age. You also have Kenneth Darby, a top 150 wide receiver. You already had 3 wide receivers committed. So the flip really isn't anything, but it is something, right? Nothing too big. Okay? Let's go to Brambo. He is expecting 9 or 3 or worse with the 6-pack of abs. LA Mom says, I agree with BK keeping Joe Sloan around to give him another season of seasoning. I hope you're right. I really, really, really do. Thundy says Jabari Mack is the next Malik Neighbors. I don't know about that. But then again, there was Eddie Kennison a week ago who said Chris Hilton could be Malik Neighbors next year. Could be. Chris Hilton going into year 5. I think Chris will have a big season. I do. A year 5 top 100 recruit with a ridiculously high ADOT is going to have a good season. Now, he needs to become a more well-rounded player, and obviously just needs to be a healthy player. But Chris is going to be really good for us next year. I do. I do think so. Okay. I do. One thing as far as Chris is concerned, Aaron Anderson and Garrett Nussmeier had growing pains. The year before, Aaron Anderson and Garrett Nussmeier were not a good connection. And even though a lot of those snaps happened in mop-up duty, they just weren't, whether it was there or practice or whatever. And then they eventually became one of the best connections in the SEC last year. Same thing happened with Chris. It was a rough connection between him and Garrett in that A&M game and in that Florida game, and then you saw it turn on in that Oklahoma and Baylor game. So it is important to note that with Garrett, our 2 best receivers returning next year had some growing pains. So you do need, hopefully, with like Barian Brown and Nick Anderson, they develop. But not only do they develop, you hit the ground running between those players. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay? Now, here's what I got to do. In the next 5 to 10 minutes, I'll answer as many questions as we possibly can. If you're super chat, we'll keep it going. I am in a flow state. I kind of want to go all night because I want to talk some Saints with the biggest Louisiana sports story over the weekend, which was the Derek Carr retirement. It's a big story. It's a story that I consider to be a big win for the Saints. I do want to give Derek Carr credit for not just floating around on the IR and elongating all of this and just calling it quits like a man. But, it's one of the most disastrous tenures I can remember in Louisiana sports history. It is a good piece of news. There's a piece of me that has floated the idea of Aaron Rodgers in New Orleans. But I do think Tyler Shuck should be the starter. I do. Over Spencer Rattler. But at this point, if I was a betting man, I would probably lean Spencer Rattler being the week 1 starter for the Saints, which is not an exciting piece of news. All right. But part of why I think the Saints want Tyler Shuck to be the starter is if he is your starter, you need to see if you're going to be in the business of a quarterback in the next draft cycle. I don't think most of you in your heart of hearts think Spencer Rattler is a long-term franchise playoff game-winning quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. So I do think you need to see what you have in Tyler Shuck. But, it's just going to be a weird year for the Saints, a very weird year. Another thing I wanted to get to as far as LSU football is concerned, we talked Ja'Kai Anderson here. I want to chat a little bit about the tight end room. I heard something interesting about from Greg Olson this weekend in an interview with Steve Smith and James Palmer. He said that he felt Mason Taylor was somewhat underutilized at LSU, which I disagree with because Mason Taylor was on the field at all times, and he ran basically every route. We split zoned him into the flat a lot. He basically ran every single route that you could think of. Played as many snaps as possible as you possibly can as a tight end. But, I do think one thing LSU does like to do is run their tight ends vertically. And one thing Bauer Sharp has over Mason Taylor, I don't think Bauer Sharp is as good as Mason Taylor. I don't think he'll be as good as Mason Taylor this year because Mason is just an overall more complete player. As a blocker, Bauer Sharp concerns me. But Sharp is a faster player than Taylor. Not by, some wide margin. He's not Brock Bowers, but he can flat out scoot for a tight end. And I think with him and Trades Green, if they can together become better blockers, it should be a big, big, big weapon for LSU. And I know Cliff has been on this train for a while that he would like to see us run more 2 tight end sets where LSU has an extra gap that you have to deal with on one side of the line of scrimmage that could create better advantages for us in the running game. One thing I felt Joe Sloan had an issue with last year is that I felt, and this is a very novice way of describing the LSU offense, I felt formationally we were a little too balanced. Basically meaning we would have an even amount of potential ball carriers on the same side of the football. And what can happen is what great offenses do is they find ways to outgap you and outnumber you on one side of the football or the other. And basically, LSU was an 11 personnel team, meaning you would have one tight end, 3 wide receivers, and a back. When you are an 11 personnel team, it's a little bit harder to do that, outnumbering teams, because in 12 personnel, you can put 2 tight ends on one side of the line on one side of the line of scrimmage or on one side of the football, and you don't know if they're going to block or go out for a pass or motion out for a pass. There's a lot of more variety you can do in that spot. But if I were to make one suggestion to LSU, is I would do more things offensively where we 3-by-1 defenses. Basically meaning whether it's pre-snap with a basic 3-by-1 alignment or just right after the snap, having 3 potential pass catchers on one side of the football and one on the other. There's plenty of different ways you can do it. Let's outnumber teams. All right. So much of modern defenses play these Saban-esque types of defenses, right? Which gets into stubby coverage, right? Which is basically palms to the 3-by-1 side. Is getting down into the weeds, where I'm not fully qualified because I didn't coach or play at a high level, but I have a semi-decent understanding of this, right? And what a 3-by-1 can do to you is it requires more thinking defensively. Where if you run a lot of 2-by-2s, which we did last year, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we did run a lot of 2-by-2s. It is a little bit easier to sort out the routes, in my opinion. Now, once again, high-level defensive coordinators might disagree with me there. But I do think we need to do a better job of creating a numbers advantage offensively next year. Okay? But once again, I don't get paid a 6-figure salary to call the plays or a 7-figure salary. But it's a hard job, but it's just something, someone anecdotally, I would have to go actually chart this. But I do think one simple key could just be more 3-by-1s. Based on what I saw, a lot of our success was doing that. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean we didn't do a good job of overloading one side of the football. We were, in particular, pretty good on flood concepts, all right? 3-level route concepts to one side of the field. We're really good with that, in particular with Kyron Lacey early versus USC and the other USC, okay? But we'll see. Well, we'll see how it turns out. Let's go to 5. Adam, pass blocking needs to improve. This is a crazy photo. I'll tell you this, Crazy Cajun Dave, as far as your comment. This has been told repeatedly, and this was not told to me last year. All right. So part of why I wasn't as high defensively on this team is that, you do occasionally get texts from other media members, from other people in the building, players, parents, texts, IGs, all that stuff, about how good you think this team is going to be. All right. There is someone in the camp of a very prominent defensive player on this next year's team who repeatedly tells me that this unit, even before the AJ Halsey addition, they feel they are going to be special next year defensively. Not good, not great. They feel they are going to be special, that they are aligned. And I was like, well, all these guys just got here. They didn't know each other. They're like, trust me on this. All right. It is one person in particular. Now, it's not an individual player, but someone in that player's orbit who would know this thing. I mean, repeatedly. I've referenced this. I got another message from this person repeatedly. This defense is going to be really good. I think if Blake Baker was sitting right here, he would tell you that. I think he would. Yeah, and here's the thing. This will sound crazy, but you can run the football with a not great offensive line. You can. The key, though, is that you can, in college football in particular, you can work around not great. All right. What you can't work around, though, is bad. It is hard to work around bad. It just is. All right. Now, what does bad mean? Bad means unplayable. All right. We had a lot of unplayable pieces at the end of last year in particular. If we can find just good, you can go out there and win games. You can go out there and win games. I just don't think that this team will have as many bad pieces next year, starting and playing a lot. I just don't see it. Another thing you have to factor in is if you have a bad player who is consistently bad in starts, you have to bake in there as well that some of your great players will have bad games. All right. So let's take a guy like Zy Alexander, who was mostly really good last year for LSU. He had a bad game versus Vanderbilt. He just did. He had a bad game. And, well, it hurt. We were still able to work around it and win the game, but it hurt. So, he was having a tough game, but he had other players step up. The problem is if you have your great player not having a great game, you can have the other players on your team that are bad still have bad games, and then it makes your problem worse. But that'll just about do it for me. Hey, he's back home. Even though we don't have kids, we have a few Mother's Day shenanigans. LA Mom showing the love. Sam, we overachieved last year for the roster we had. We started PJ Woodland. PJ Woodland had some good practices. Yeah, it's true. I think Durham's going to have a really good year. I really do think so. Okay. Big thanks to Zion Imaging and our friends at Fast Draft Fantasy. Please go sign up using my promo code Carter for a deposit match bonus up to $50. Promo code Carter with Fast Draft Fantasy. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom. And tonight we are doing stakes. Let's go.